Welcome to Tokyosaurus. So what's up in Japan? So as you know or not know, if you're in space, since there is no air, there's no sound because sound comes from vibrations in the air, which means sound cannot exist without air. Now there are ways to detect electromagnetic vibrations in space with special instruments, but you definitely cannot hear anything in space with your human ears. Now comes the question, how does anyone hear anything in the Gundam universe, as so many of their battles revolve around fighting robots in space? All those explosions, lasers, beam swords, slicing through fancy metals, all those sounds should technically be inaudible in space. But what if you're inside a Gundam, and since there might be air inside the Gundam, or inside your helmet, does any of that make a difference to exactly what a Gundam pilot should be able to hear? Or is this all just a giant plot hole in sci-fi that nobody wants to address? Fear not, because in Japan, Twitter user Alleycat346 has posted a few pages of a Gundam manga that contains the secret answer to the age-old question. It got the attention of over 10,000 people immediately, and if I'm correct, this manga should have came from a series published from 2010. So inside the 80-year-old manga he posted contains the answer to exactly the question posed above. Just how does anyone hear anything in space in their Gundams? On the very first page, a character asks why he can hear big sounds in space, since space is a vacuum and you're not supposed to hear anything. The other character says that inside the cockpit and the helmets, when you're inside the Gundam, there is actually a stereo sound system, which means there are speakers inside the pilot's helmet as well as inside the cockpit. We're talking 7.1 Dolby Digital minimum. Okay, that part I made up, but continuing on, how it works is that there is a camera outside on the Gundam somewhere, probably its eyes, that records what's going on outside the mobile suit. And then the computer inside the Gundam will play sounds to match what the pilot is seeing. So all those sound effects that Gundam pilots hear when they're fighting in space are all essentially video game sounds. There's an AI in there that scans the video feed from outside the Gundam, it processes it, and then automatically applies cool sound effects. Take for example an explosion. Whenever an explosion happens, the pilot sees it on the display, and while he sees it on the screen, the computer has already added the sound of an explosion to match the visuals so the pilot gets it in real time. Lastly, he mentions that the sound quality in his Jogug was exceptional with the sound of his new blade. He also felt like the explosions had such a good bass that even his stomach could feel the vibrations. Sounds like an audiophile's dream to have a cockpit of speakers designed to make your stomach shake. Another page from a little later in the manga also shows that the mobile suit pilots could also change the sound data, and even though it was technically not allowed, Gundam pilots often changed presets to their own favorite sounds to entertain themselves. Now why would Gundams need to have made-up sounds inside the cockpit while they're fighting for their lives? Well, maybe because having actual sound feedback versus no sound feedback while you're in a fight would make a huge difference in how well and how fast you can respond during battle. Take for example, a huge explosion happens behind you. While the computer has taken notice of it, if your screen doesn't show it, there is no way for you to know that you probably need to start heading in the opposite direction of that explosion. But with the perfect surround sound, you immediately know that there's something behind you and that you probably need to get away from, and thus will definitely increase your chance of survival in space. It's like having surround sound headphones while you're playing a first-person shooter game. It gives a pretty big advantage by increasing environmental awareness. And especially since this is all computer produced and processed, you can probably give yourself an even bigger advantage by changing some of those presets to more alarming sounds when it detects bigger threats, like when your enemy mobile suit turns on their Trans-Am system. So the saying, "no one can hear you scream in space," probably doesn't exist in the Gundam universe. But if the computer can see you screaming or making a face as if you're screaming, then inside someone's helmet or cockpit, they will hear a preset sound effect go off to someone screaming. You might not be the actual one screaming, but it will work to the same effect. So there you have it, Gundam's answer to why there is sound in space for Gundam pilots. Again, this is an official Gundam manga publication and not some sort of fan theory made into a manga, so you can definitely take it as Gundam's perspective on sound in space at the moment. Anyways, are you guys okay with Gundam pilots having sound systems to produce artificial sounds to hear what's happening as if there is air in space? As usual, let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a thumbs up before you leave, subscribe and hit that bell for notifications if you want to be updated with the latest that's going on in Japan, and I'll see you guys in the next one.